Hey folks, welcome to Winners Wallets and Worldviews. I'm your host AJ Armstrong, and today you guys are going to be in for a very exciting treat. It's get your pen and paper ready. This is a very note-heavy discussion that we had today with Jayme Tarshis. Now, Jayme is a Facebook ad expert, and we talked about exactly how to navigate that world. And the reason I wanted to bring her on is because it seems like so much of business today is run through Facebook, believe it or not. And if you don't master these targeted ads, there's a lot of money you could be leaving on the table. So I wanted to get her idea on how we could help you guys and help me, most importantly, understand all of these different types of strategies for putting together a real Facebook ad. So I want to give you a quick introduction on Jayme. Now, she's a proven marketing specialist. She's an entrepreneur. She speaks all over the country. And one of the things she does is she specializes in helping what she calls heart-centered entrepreneurs generate traffic, leads, and sales all through Facebook ads. She's been doing this for the last 6 or 7 years. She's been featured in online summits, including Entrepreneur on Fire with John Lee Dumas, who's coming on in a couple weeks. And she's been all over the place helping people generate thousands and thousands of leads and featured all over. So she was truly an incredible guest, just the most compassionate, warm-hearted person you guys will ever meet. And she was absolutely wonderful. So I really hope you guys find the value that she was able to bring today. Like I said, if you're running or jogging or in the car or something like that, I encourage you to keep listening, but you're going to want to take notes at some point because she gives some excellent tips and tactics for exactly things you can take away to your business. This is absolutely a masterclass of an episode today. So without any further ado, folks, this is Winners, Wallets, and Worldviews. Welcome to the show.
Welcome to Winners, Wallets, and Worldviews, the only show that's going to teach you how to be somebody.
Where in your life did you learn that you're not good enough?
Take what you're most passionate about and what you're most fearful of. And what is the plan to overcome that fear? And what is the plan to enact that passion?
All right, everybody, welcome to Winners, Wallets, and Worldviews. I'm your host, AJ Armstrong. You can find me on Instagram at AaronArmstrong33, or you can always go to my website, AaronJArmstrong.com. Today, we are on the podcast Winners, Wallets, and Worldviews. We bring in winners, people that are crushing it in life in different arenas, different aspects. Wallets, we talk about small business, finance, side hustles, and personal finance. And finally, Worldviews, where we discuss larger issues, deeper thoughts, philosophical considerations, and my faith. So without any further ado, we've got a really awesome guest. We're going to dive into some tactics in the world of Facebook marketing. So joining us on the line today, we have Jayme Tarshis, who is going to give us all of the answers in mastering Facebook advertisements. Jayme, thank you for coming on the show.
Of course. Thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to be here and to share some tips with your audience today.
Yeah, this is always incredible when we get people on that are just masters in their arena that we can piggyback off of and kind of learn things that, I'm going to learn so much today. And that's one of the reasons I want to bring you on the show, because when I'm struggling in a certain part of my business, I like to investigate and bring our listeners along for the journey. So, well, Jayme, I want the audience to learn a little bit about who you are and kind of where you came from. So can you just give us, a little bit of your story?
Yeah, definitely. So I, right now I'm a marketing and Facebook ad strategist, but I got my start in the digital marketing world about 7 years ago. So at the time I was working at a large mortgage and real estate firm doing their marketing. And that's kind of where I got all of my experience and learned kind of the foundational skills that I've used to build my career today. And while I was working for that company, I started to learn about, just everything in the digital marketing world, from Google ads to SEO to creating content to I was doing social media management. And I just started to get a lot of other business owners and friends and just people around me starting to sort of ask forward my advice around marketing. And after working at that job for a couple of years, I really liked what I was doing, but I just had that itch to want to help more people. And like I said, I had all these people asking for my advice. And then one day I just decided, why shouldn't I just be able to do this? Why shouldn't I be able to, charge to do this as opposed to just doing it, just for fun? And so I made the decision to leave my job. I told myself if I could find even just one client that I would put my 2 weeks notice in, and then I would start my own company and just help as many business owners as I could with digital marketing. And So I actually went on Craigslist to find my first client, funny enough.
Oh,
And
really?
that was looking for a virtual marketer, and anyways, ended up signing with them. So I put my 2 weeks in, and kind of the rest was history from there. But when I first started out, I would consider myself now like more of a Jill of all trades type marketer. So like I said, I was doing a little bit of everything, which was great. I could help my clients with a lot of different things, but at the same time, a lot of what I was focusing on just wasn't moving the needle forward fast enough for my clients. And so one day I actually had a client that came to me, and they were looking to really just to scale it faster. And they were like, we feel like Facebook ads would be a great place to really grow our business. They have a large user base. We've been hearing great things about it. Why don't you take like $500 and go try to run some ads for us and see what you can do for our business? So this was about 5 years ago. And I was like, I really had no idea about Facebook ads. I'd boosted some posts before, and I'd used them to, get some more likes on a post, or maybe even to get some more likes to some of my clients' pages. But I never really used them for anything much more than that. But I was like, all right, I took it as a challenge, and then I went to work and I did some research. And a few weeks later, I took that $500 and I ran some Facebook ads for them. And I turned that $500 into like just over 200 leads for their company. And then a few weeks later, after kind of nurturing those leads through email marketing and even through some customer service, we were able to turn those 500 leads. We were able to convert a certain percentage of those people and turn that into $67,000 in revenue.
Wow.
And you could say that was definitely like my light bulb moment of like, wow, like Facebook ads can be a very powerful platform. And at the time I was working with a client with a very like niche, high price point product. And so I was just like, the wheels just started to spin in my head. And I was like, wow, like imagine all the different things that you could advertise with Facebook, especially something that's like a lower price point, like an easier yes. And so I just basically made it my mission at that point to start working with as many businesses as possible that would allow me to run Facebook ads for them. And so at the time, that was a lot of like e-commerce businesses. So I worked with a lot of e-commerce, and then I went to working with local businesses. And I worked with people in the mortgage and real estate industry a lot at first too, just because it was an industry I came from and I knew. But then eventually over the years, I found my niche now to working with more coaches, consultants, online experts to really help them use Facebook ads to generate leads, sell more courses, programs, digital products, or their one-on-one services. And that's really what I use Facebook for. Yeah.
Got it. Wow. Yeah, you kind of covered a lot of bases there. A lot to unpack with this. I wanted to go all the way back to when you were with you said it was some type of real estate firm. What exactly were you marketing when you were involved with that? Because we got a lot of listeners that invest into real estate as well, and I myself am an investor. And I was kind of curious what you found was effective back when you were kind of just starting out as a marketer.
Yeah, so I wasn't doing as much for the real estate side as I was for actually the mortgage side of the company, but I
Okay,
was
so it's more with the mortgages. Got it.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. So I was directly advertising the mortgage side to try to get people in for loan applications, so for home loans. And at the time, I was actually really focusing more on Google ads. So that's where I got my start in paid advertising. But then when I saw the cost comparison between Google ads to Facebook ads and how much Facebook ads were so much cheaper and you could get just as big of results, so your return was a whole lot bigger, that's when I really just decided to make that pivot and focus on only doing Facebook ads for businesses.
Got it. Okay. So let's talk about the Facebook ad world for, I guess, a beginner, and then we'll just kind of pick apart maybe some of the more, complex subjects as we go. But so if I have a business, I'm trying to get one-on-one consult or get one-on-one coaching, or I have a program or something like that, where do I start? How do I start the process of beginning a Facebook ad campaign? What would I do?
Yeah. So basically where I'd recommend starting is first by getting really clear on like what your goal is. I think that immediately, we associate using ads with getting more sales, but a lot of the times, depending on your type of company, that might not be such a direct process. Like I said, you might need to be doing something where you're generating leads first, or just general brand awareness if you have something that requires a really long buying journey. But I would really start to think about first, like what your goal is. And then from there, you can start to structure like an ad strategy and campaigns around that goal. But one thing that I recommend everyone getting started before you even start really thinking about using ads to go out to cold traffic is using Facebook ads to actually capitalize on the existing people in your audience that you haven't already converted. So a lot of us are putting an effort right now to like market ourselves on social media, to drive traffic to our websites, to do all of these different things online and on social media to gain more brand awareness. But a lot of the times, or even to build an email list, but then a lot of the times we stop there and there's nothing else to follow up with people to actually get them to now become our customers. So I recommend using actually Facebook ads if you're just getting started to just retarget your existing customers. And you can do that through, if you have the Facebook pixel installed on your website, you can retarget your website customers, or you can just retarget people who are already in your audience, such as your email list, or people who have actually recently engaged with like your Facebook page. That's one of the audiences that Facebook is that they allow us to target since we're using their platform. So just start by taking the people already in your business and going after them first. And there you can make a lot of your money back right away, and then use that profit to start advertising your business out to cold traffic.
So if you're looking at this from like a reach or a discovery, probably a better word, it's better to focus in on the people that you already have within this kind of network that you've established versus immediately jumping to brand awareness and trying to pull in newer faces or existing customers or something, or future customers, instead focusing in on that immediate circle and kind of tightening down. You mentioned Facebook pixels. Can you, for a beginner, what is a Facebook pixel and what does that look like?
Yeah, I'm so glad you asked. The Facebook pixel, a lot of people like hear that word, but don't really understand what it means or think it's some big scary thing. But it's actually just a small piece of code, and in some cases, just a number, like a long number that Facebook provides you that you can put onto your website, or you can put into any place that you send traffic online. So any of your landing page builder tools, if you use something like a ClickFunnels or a Lead Pages, or any of your email marketing tools like ConvertKit, or just on your website, on WordPress, Wix, Squarespace, wherever it is that you send people to online, you can put this code from Facebook on it. And then that now will give you the ability to retarget the traffic that goes to those particular landing pages. In addition, the Facebook pixel is what it basically does is it sends that data back to Facebook, so that then Facebook can actually start to get to know the people that are interacting with your business and your website better, so that over time they can use that data to actually give you better results on your ads. So it's kind of just like this, it's this amazing piece of, like I said, it's a small piece of code that you put on your website, and it just makes your Facebook ads overall just a lot more effective. And it takes less than 60 seconds to install once you have the code. It's very simple. Anyone can do it if you are curious.
Do you just post that anywhere on your website in a box somewhere, or is there like usually places within your hosting domain you can place that?
Yeah, there's usually places. A lot of the times they'll say there will be a place in like your settings for the Facebook Pixel ID, which is just that long number, and you can paste that in there. Otherwise, if you have like even WordPress uses plugins. There's a plugin called Pixel Caffeine. And then, like I said, some cases you will just have to put it in the header code of the landing page. So a lot of tools will allow you to put some custom code into like either the header or the body of your site. And if you have that option, you can put it in the header, and it's a one-time install. So once it's on there for life, and it'll collect that data ongoing, so that whether you decide to run ads now or you run them in the future, Facebook can start collecting that data so that they're able to give you better results when that time does come.
Okay. So I'm kind of picturing, and help me if I'm understanding this correctly. It's in one way, it's a net that kind of captures people that are coming to your website. And then does it also, once it has captured that person that has come to your website, does it also kind of reveal the trail of history with that person in a way to where you can kind of see their behavior, or provides data with it? Or is it just kind of follow them from then on?
It does in a sense. You can't really look at that data like per user, because then that is obviously crossing some sort of like privacy,
Right.
Lines there. But you can what you can do is, a lot of the times people will say, oh, I ran a Facebook ad, I spent X amount of dollars, and I have no idea what happened after I ran it. And that is definitely like, that's a problem, right? Because if you don't know what happened, if you don't know like what people did after,
I've been there.
Yeah, we've all been there. But yeah, if that's you, then that's not going to help you make any sort of meaningful decision about what ads to run for your business. So with the Facebook Pixel, if you have it installed, you would have the ability basically from your Facebook Ads Manager, where you're setting up your ads, to look at your campaign that you ran. And let's say you spent $100 on it, you'd be able to see, okay, from this $100, I had, let's say I had 50 people click on it. And then I had from there 25 people go view my sales page. And then I had 5 people add something to cart. And then I had 1 person buy, if that's what happened. You would be able to see all of those actions all the way through because of the Facebook Pixel, which helps you, like I said, really understand what's working and what's not about your ad strategy so that you can easily make tweaks and change things to make it convert better for you. And without that Facebook Pixel, you're kind of just guessing. And so that's why I recommend that everybody go get that set up if you don't have it already. Like I said, it's as simple as Googling Facebook Pixel and then whatever platform that it is that you use to host your website or your landing pages, and get it on there because it'll save you so much headache.
Got it. So it more maps the behavior of the person once they've kind of accessed your platform in a way. And then you're
Exactly.
able,
Yep. It maps their
to use that.
behavior, and then then gives you that ability to say, okay, if you wanted to run a retargeting campaign specifically to somebody who visited your sales page or specifically to somebody who added that to their cart, then you can do that. And so a lot of the times, I'm sure you guys have, your audience, people in your audience have seen these ads. Like, let's say you go to one of your favorite websites to shop for a shirt or something, and then you come back to Facebook and that shirt pops back up in your newsfeed. That's all done via the power of the Facebook Pixel.
Got it. Okay. So the Facebook Pixel is extremely important to kind of shed the insights into that buying behavior, as well as the collecting some information on that person as they've interacted with you in the past. So then once you have that pixel, okay, so now we've kind of gone into identifying what our goal is. So we talked about with identifying what the goal is. This is some places where I've gotten confused before as well. It's just, the goal doesn't always have to be a click to buy kind of thing if they see a Facebook ad. And as we had another guest on with who talked about e-commerce, and he talked about how he really wants to get click to buy with his Facebook ads. However, this could be some other type of action that you're interested in, is like building out your email list or something else. So you're talking about defining that goal more than anything. What are you trying to get, like an email, or you're trying to get an actual purchase, or you're just trying to get someone to like something or something like that?
Yes, exactly. Because there might be times in your business where you maybe do just need more general brand awareness for something. But again, depending on your style of business, if you're not e-commerce, most of the time your Facebook ads are not going to be directing people to either book a call with you or to buy your course if that's what you're selling, because that's just not how people buy, right? Like Facebook is a social platform. It's not like Google or one of the other platforms where people are going there to actually search for something, or like on Amazon where people are searching with the intent of buying. On Facebook, it's the exact opposite. And so, with e-commerce, it's a little bit different. If you have something that's a reason, that's a lower price point, you usually can get somebody to buy off of just one ad. But again, if you're selling a course, if you're selling a service, if you're, doing anything along those lines, or even some digital products, you'll likely want to start by showing up with value and giving people either some good free content or some sort of like lead magnet or freebie, so that you can start by giving first and then getting some contact information so you have the ability to retarget that person and also email them on the back end, which is, one of the best uses of your ad dollars to me, is to pay to get a lead that you can then market to for free on the back end,
With
and then
email,
that way
right?
You're also knowing too, for the money you've spent, you're getting X amount of leads. You can then track how many of those leads you close into sales. And that gives you a very tangible way to look at what you're getting out of your Facebook ads, where a lot of the times, people will just boost a post and say, okay, I spent X amount of dollars, but I don't really know what that attributed to. And it's like, this will now give you that ability to get really granular with like exactly what it is that you're paying for.
Right. Okay. So you mentioned a couple of good things in there, and not necessarily the idea of when you picture Facebook ads as a beginner, so like, just a lay like me who doesn't get it at all, and then you run an ad, and at first you have this idea that it's going to be like an ad where they'll just pick up the phone and they'll book a consult with you or something like that. But in this case, you recommend having some type of freebie or some kind of gimme. Can you give me an example of ones that you found most effective? I know in the past we've done things with ebooks, we've done things with free courses or online courses. But what have you noticed seems to be one of the better giveaways for someone that might be, a coach or a consultant, or even like a health professional, or someone that's trying to kind of get those one-on-one services with people? What have you found to be the most beneficial?
That's a great question. So the things that I found to work best in terms of a like freebie to get clients for, yeah, like if you're a coach or you're a consultant or you're selling something that's probably a little bit higher ticket, would be usually like a webinar. So a lot of us see like webinars, free trainings, like master classes, and that's because they are a higher commitment, right? You're going to pay more per lead for something like that than you would with like maybe just like an ebook or a PDF download of some sort. But again, you're getting a higher commitment lead because these people are willing to spend an hour plus with you on a webinar. And over that hour, someone's going to build a really strong relationship with you, a lot stronger than if they had just downloaded your ebook or something written where they're not really getting that taste of you, which at the end of the day is kind of what you're actually selling, right? Is them working with you. And so I find that webinars work really, really well for that. If you have like a case study video where you're either interviewing a client or you're just talking about results that you've gotten for a client, that can work really, really well. That's one of the first things I did when I first started running ads for my own business. Was I did a 20-minute case study video talking about how I was able to generate leads for like a handful of clients, just showing
That's a great idea.
my behind the scenes process. Yeah. And then basically once you do that, below that video, you can have that option for people to book a call with you right there. Because again, the people who sit through and watch that, not everyone's going to do it. You end up paying for some leads who maybe just end up not even clicking your email and watching it. But the ones who do, if you give them the right value, they'll want to work with you for sure afterwards. If you give them the answers that they're looking for, and then lead it with, a pitch to get on a call with you, and so that you can continue seeing if it's a good fit.
I think that's helpful, and that's good to know. One struggle I've had in the past, and I think speaking with some of my clients as well, is kind of choosing a webinar topic in a way that is interesting enough to get that high level commitment. Because there's lots of things that we go into when we're working with these different small business owners and startups, as far as how they can kind of take their business and maximize it. But when you're marketing a webinar on a Facebook ad, it's been difficult for us to kind of pinpoint something that is catchy enough to do the stop scroll and get them in there without being inauthentic. So I guess, do you have any ideas or tips that you would think of that are good subjects that could work for someone that is a business coach, or someone that does work with business owners and tends to get results in different ways?
Yeah. So I like that question too. I don't think I've ever gotten that question, but that's a great question. I would say, so typically a lot of the times as a coach or a consultant, if you have like a program or a course or something that you're taking your clients through, it's usually based off of some sort of framework you've created. So I always say, if that's the case and you have your own like methodology or framework, that's a great subject to make your webinar about, because it's giving people your own specific way of doing something. And then it's basically it's giving them a small taste of what it would be like to work with you at a larger scale. So that's one thing I recommend if you already have something like that created. I would say, other than that though, I would think about like, what is the biggest problem that your target audience is facing right now? Like, of what you do, like of your niche, what is the absolute biggest problem that they're facing? And then make the topic around that is probably what I'd recommend. And then the other thing that I'd always recommend to clients is take a look at what's worked for you organically. So if you notice that like you've put out a freebie before on a certain subject and people just went crazy for it, how can you expand upon that freebie into a masterclass? Or even with a blog post, if you had a certain blog post that, just like took off, or like is the one ranking really high in Google, how can you maybe take that same similar content that you find is working somewhere else and then put that into a webinar? So that hopefully should give people a few ideas of what to create their webinar around. But I recommend as much as possible giving people, like pulling out a portion of whatever it is, like your end service or program that you take people through. If you can pull out a piece of that and give it to them in a webinar, that just is the best way, is to give people that small taste. It's like, I always compare this to being the sample lady at Costco. Like, how often do you go into Costco like not intending to even like buy half the things that you end up buying when you're in there? But then you see the sample lady and she gives you a small taste of it and you try it and you're like, wow, this is really amazing. And then you end up buying like 6 bags of some random trail mix you like weren't expecting to buy, right? And that's exactly what can happen with your webinar if you give people a small taste of what it's like to be working with you, or if you're going to be teaching them, like learning from you. So anyways, that was kind of a long-winded answer, but I hope
No, that's a fantastic answer though, because I think it's right on. And it's when you look at, what is the problem we're trying to solve, or if you're a business owner, or especially a coach, or, but any business owner in general, there's some type of problem you're trying to solve. And I think if you can dig into understanding that target market and understanding those pain points, and then being able to communicate that pain point, that's like, I'm with you, right? Like, here is I understand this is what you're going through. And they're like, this guy gets me. And it's kind of like the classic 80s, late night TV commercial, like, are you a person that does like this and this? Are you a this and this and this? And it's like, that's me. And then they pick up the phone and buy. I think that's kind of what we see now with Facebook a little bit. It's kind of, how can I connect with this person? Say, here's the problem you're experiencing. Am I right? And they're like, you're right. Here's the solution. And then you mentioned, as far as the solution, it's included in the webinar or in the freebie. That's going to be your framework, or it's going to uncover at least the foundation or the founding principles of how you think you can provide that solution to people. I think that's very helpful advice that helps me too as well, focus in on not just wasting marketing dollars, but you're spending, your headline or your subject should some way register with that pain and that frustration and that problem, so that people can commune with you on that, and then you can pull them in and give them some solution. Then you also mentioned the Costco free sample, which I'm a sucker for, especially before COVID-19 hit. And I love samples and I eat all of them, and I also don't buy them though. But and then that's founded on the idea of the reciprocity piece, which we've talked about in other episodes too. That you give a little, and then other people also feel that relationship because you've provided value to them. They also want to exchange value in return, and they've also felt that value and built more of a commitment with you that way. So awesome ideas so far. This is great. This takes me into another question too, that's along these same lines. So we've picked a subject now for this. We've got our pixel running, we've picked a subject of what we want to capture. Are there any tips on the actual ad design that you've found to be most effective? Because I see this like every time I go to a conference or something, that's the algorithms, everything's changing so quickly with Facebook that it seems like there's always different advice. And I'm just kind of curious what your thoughts are on when it comes to designing the ad. Some people say 2 sentences. Some people say long ads. Some people say 30-minute videos. Some people say no, 10, 30-second videos. And it's just kind of what, as far as the format and design of the ad, I'll just let you kind of riff on that for a little bit.
Okay. Yeah. I know there's so much advice out there about that. And I will just start by saying that there is no one exact formula. So like you said, someone who says, oh yeah, only long copy or only short copy or only this type of image or only this type of video. It's so different for every business. So I just recommend you test. And that's the great thing about Facebook ads, is you don't have to spend a lot of money to test different elements like this and then truly see what works the best for your business. But what I will say works, generally the best on average. I've run over like 5,000 different ads over the years. So I've definitely seen like trends, right? And what works and whatnot. So what I would say though, in terms of things you should be thinking about. So most important thing on a Facebook ad is that first line of text. I call it the hook, because it's what stops and draws people in to want to pay attention to your ad. So that's the most important thing I'd be thinking about, is like, what is that initial hook? What's that initial sentence that you're leading with? Is it going to be something that actually stops your target audience and wants to, and piques their curiosity so that they want to continue reading your ad? A couple of ways that you can do that, you can hook people in, is to start by asking a question. Usually I like to ask a yes implied question. So like, are you tired of dealing with this, whatever their pain point is, or are you wanting to do this, whatever it is.
Our late night ad, right?
Yes, exactly. Because psychologically that does stop our brains to want to answer and say either like, yes, that is something I want to learn more about. So it stops us psychologically. So a question works really well. Another hook that I like to use is like a bold or attention grabbing statement. So something that's really going to just like make someone kind of go like, wait, what? Like kind of shock them a little bit. That can be a good thing, or leading with a story. I think we've all heard in general, like in marketing, that stories sell. So starting off by telling a story that, especially if it's a story that your ideal customer can relate to, either if you've been through what it is that you're helping them with through, or if you've helped, you can tell a story about a client that you've helped get from point A to point Z, if that's what your ideal audience is wanting to do. But telling a story can also be a great way to really get someone to stop and pay attention to you. And like you were saying earlier, it builds that trust of like, oh, this person really gets what I'm going through. And when people, feel like you understand them, that's when they trust you. So those can all be different ways that you can stop people. But I really just would think about, is that first piece of text, that first sentence in your ad, is it something that if you were your ideal client, would you stop and want to continue reading that? Or would it just cause you to want to keep scrolling? If so, I really encourage you to kind of play around with that and spend probably the most time coming up with those first few initial words.
That's good. I think it's interesting. The advice you're providing, it brings me back to like 8th grade composition class almost, when it's like, hey, how do you start a paper? You got to have an interesting question or an anecdote, just like you mentioned. It's a way to kind of hook people in. I think it's a tried and true method of storytelling to try to provide that hook.
Yeah, definitely. And like you said, this is not just related to ads. This is something that works, like you said, in all sorts of different styles of writing. This is something that works just on your social media posts, right? All the examples I just gave, you can be using just anytime you're putting out content to get people to stop and pay attention, because we all know that social media is very, very noisy. So you have to have a compelling message. So I'd start with that. And then in terms of like the image, or the video, I guess you could say, I do recommend that if you're going for lead generation, typically an image is actually going to perform better than a video. And the only thing that I can conclude to that is really that for someone who doesn't know you, because generally when you're running ads to get leads, you're running it to cold traffic, so people who don't know who you are. With a video, for people that don't know you, they'll generally get caught up watching that video and they don't end up following through on the actual thing that you wanted them to, which was like go to your landing page and opt in for your free training or whatever it is that you're giving away. So I find on those types of ads that an image typically works best. And then for retargeting purposes, I like to use as much video as possible, because at that point you're really focusing on closing the sale. And that's when having your face in there, building that relationship, getting people really used to seeing you, especially if you're a coach or consultant, it helps. So that's like, I guess in terms of like creative, what I'd recommend is do probably start by testing more images on your lead generation ads, and then save your video for more retargeting, as well as like if you're just doing brand awareness. Video is really great for brand awareness, because another really great audience that Facebook allows you to retarget is people who watch your videos on Facebook, and they allow you to retarget people who watch a certain percentage of your videos. So if you're running those for brand awareness, let's say you're just spending $100 running a video ad to get it out there to as many people as possible. Well, you can then retarget those people who watch, let's say 50% or more, or even 90% or more of that video with some sort of other ad. Because if they watch that much, they were very interested, right? People have short attention spans. I think the average video watch time on Facebook is like 7 seconds. So if someone watched, 50% of your 60-second video, like you're doing really good. You got someone's attention. So, yeah.
So as far as like that stop scroll problem, we have kind of the hook, which is that first sentence, that buy-in, and then something to do with, if it's a cold lead, something to do with an image. Is there any general advice around the style of image, or do you just recommend just playing around with things? I mean, I imagine there's some general foundation principles, like aesthetically pleasing to some extent, or do you believe in having like more noise and chaos in there to just kind of stop people's attention? I'm wondering what you kind of think about when it comes to that image design.
Yeah, definitely. So images, again, are something to test. What I generally like to always do, though, is have one branded image with some sort of text overlay on it. So that, like it will have like its own headline or call to action
Even if
text.
Facebook tells you it's got too much text in the photo, is that true or not?
Just be careful. Yes, there is a 20% text limit rule, so you can't go too big on the text. But yes, I do like to use a little bit of text because it just helps you further convey your message. But then I do like to use one totally plain image as well. So one that doesn't have any text on it, and then I'll generally test like a stock image as well. Like, be careful with stock images because there's a lot of really cheesy bad ones out there. But if you can find one that generally what I'm looking for in images is I like using images with bright colors if possible because they really stand out. And then if it's not a super exciting image, one thing that you can do is I will outline the image with some sort of like, I'll go in and bring the image into like Canva or Photoshop and then add like a border around it of a bright color. And that will typically be like one tactic that I use to get it to stand out a little bit more. As well as sometimes I'll even play around with doing a black and white image just because it's not as commonly seen on the Facebook and Instagram newsfeed. So when you use a black and white image, all of a sudden that can make it stand out and really pop from all of the rest of the colored images on Facebook.
Got it. Awesome. And then for, like, I guess some warmer leads or people that you'd be retargeting to, you recommended having some video content just to keep giving people, showing your face and building that relationship. Is there any tips or anything around videos? I've heard people say like, captions for sure, no captions. Length is important. What have you generally found?
Yeah, definitely. I would say, first of all, keep it as short as possible. Like, only include what is necessary to convey your message to people. Like I said, there's a short attention span on Facebook and Instagram, and Instagram actually has a 120-second ad video limit. So, I mean, you can't go longer than 2 minutes on Instagram anyway. So I just say, like, as rule of thumb, make sure all your videos are at least 2 minutes or less. Captions are definitely good because a lot of people are going to be watching their videos, without the sound on. And then in some cases, I like to even test putting the video with like the headline text above or below it, if you know what I'm talking about, where
Yep.
it's like almost edited, like onto a canvas. Because again, not everybody's going to listen to your video, and that's just another way that you can really stop people with that headline text.
And
So
that's different than your hook text.
that is, yeah. I mean, I would make them somewhat related in terms of like the text that you're using, but yes, like the words would technically be different.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, no, that's really helpful. Okay, so then now we have the different ad styles you can kind of run. We've got a hook, we've got photo for cold leads, for warmer leads, we've got video, we've got pixels running in the background. Is there a strategy for, now we talked a lot about just testing these different options. Do you have a system or a rhythm or any tips or tricks with the different types of testing patterns you like to do, or how does it normally work when you're going about it?
Yeah, I have a little bit of a system. So I would say generally I start by testing audiences first, just because your audience is such a big piece of it, right? Like, you could create the most compelling ad and you can have an amazing offer, but if you put it in front of the wrong people, you're going to fail every time. So I generally start by testing audiences, and that's where I would put majority of that testing budget. And then I'll start by testing, I would say anywhere between like 2 to 5 to start. Once I've tested 2 to 5, if I find, usually I'm pretty good where I'll find like 1 to 2 winners out of there. If not, I'll continue testing up to maybe 10 different audiences until I find those 1 to 2 winners. And then once I find the winning audiences, I'll do further testing of the actual copy first, and then I will test the creative, the actual image. And I just find that's because copy is what the image stops people, but the copy is what gets people to take action. So I start by testing that first because I find it does make a big difference in your click-through rates and also the type of people that are clicking on your ads. The type of copy and messaging that you're using makes a big difference. So I generally test in that order.
So you'll start with, you'll design an ad of sorts, and then you'll just test the audience exclusively. So you'll say, I want basketball players in the Southeast United States or whatever. And you'll run that ad with just the one ad design. And then you'll test, I want to test gymnasts in Southern California. And you do that, but you're just looking at the audience with the same ad. And then the later steps, you test the actual copy within the ad. So the text that ad is reading, but now you've selected your audience. And
Mm-hmm.
then you'll go into the image, or the image change, the third tier of your testing.
Yes. Yep. Generally, that's what I'll do. And then sometimes I'll do further testing from there in terms of maybe going into different placements or countries or other things like that. But at that point, I already know like it's if things don't work, it's not because it's not because of the audience, and it's not because of the actual ad creative itself, because I've already proven all of those different things to have worked before I start testing other things.
Okay. Yeah, that's interesting. So then it's just a A/B testing with those two things. So you're just picking two audiences, then you're picking two copies, and then you're picking two images, right?
Yeah, and sometimes I'll actually do more. I'll do maybe like 3 sets of copy, or I'll do like 3 to 4 images. So I might do a little bit more than actual just like 2 elements, or like it's still A/B testing because I'm only changing that one thing every time, but it's like I might actually test more variations.
Okay, got it. Yeah, that's helpful too. Now, when we had another Facebook guy on before, we talked a little bit about the bidding process to kind of buy those leads or whatever. I'm unfamiliar with the term because clearly I'm not the expert at all. That's why you're here. So the idea is to like how does that bidding process go, and what does it look like, and how does help knowing that help your strategy as well?
Yeah. So Facebook's bidding process, essentially what it's doing is it's an auction system. So based on the different targeting parameters that you choose and the budget, the daily or lifetime budget that you give to your campaign, that's going to essentially tell Facebook how to prioritize entering your campaign into the auction to get the results that you're looking for. So there's if you don't do anything by default, if you don't set a bid, if you don't change any of the bid strategies in your campaign, Facebook's actually going to automatically optimize and do all of that work for you. And that's just where I recommend everyone start, is don't make things harder than you need to be when you're first getting started with ads. Is you don't have to look for any of that. Facebook's going, if you leave it open, they're actually going to look for the best results within your budget that they can find. So they're going to look for the lowest cost per conversion if you're getting purchases, or lowest cost per lead if you're optimizing for leads, as possible within your budget. So yeah, hopefully that kind of answers your question.
Yeah, I think, yeah, just where do we start, and how does that work? Because the other guy was on, he was kind of talking a little bit about, you want to be able to, that's going to go to the highest bidder in that specific niche. And it was just kind of like, well, what do I do with that? Does that mean I need to spend more money more aggressively quicker, or how do I do this on a budget kind of thing? So
Yeah. So when it comes to that, I don't necessarily worry too much about what other people are doing, or I'm I'm going to be looking at what is my cost per result, because when I'm looking at Facebook ads, there's a ton of metrics you can measure. But at the end of the day, the most important one is cost per result, and then return on ad spend. If you have a good cost per result and you have a positive return on ad spend, nothing else really matters. But what you'll find is sometimes the difference in how that works is, if you, let's say, target an audience that's highly competitive. Let's say it's like men who like Tony Robbins and are like in a certain like income bracket or something, like that's going to be a very popular targeting option, because I'm sure there's just like tons of business owners out there that are targeting that demographic. And so when it comes to doing that, you'll find that your cost per result, like either cost per lead or cost per purchase, is probably going to be a little bit higher on that. And that's because that's a more competitive audience. And that's why testing different audiences, I don't just recommend it so that you find obviously like which ones convert best for you, but also so you have a comparison between that cost per conversion. And so if you find that you have 2 different audiences and they're both getting results, but one of them is significantly higher than the other, it's probably because that audience you're targeting is a lot more of an expensive audience. So the way I would be thinking about how to bring that down and how to get the best bid and basically cost per result on your campaigns is getting as niche as you can with your targeting. So really getting specific, instead of just choosing men who like Tony Robbins, because that's going to be a really, really popular audience. Think about what other interests your audience has besides liking Tony Robbins. Where are they shopping? What websites are they reading or consuming news from? What maybe like groups or organizations are they a part of? What tools or like other things are they maybe using if they're business owners? Start to think about those other things, and then think about how you can layer that in with with people who also maybe like that interest. So people who like Tony Robbins, but also shop at Whole Foods and also have a small business and also have 2 kids, or, all of these other, the more specific you can get with your audience, typically the better you're going to get in terms of your results, because it's not going to be as expensive and that's not going to be as competitive of an audience. So
Yeah, I think that's good advice to think about what other, almost in a way, like what other not as obvious characteristics does your audience have, because that would in effect kind of lower that cost a little bit. Like you mentioned, like I don't know, like Tony Robbins, and 25% of his brand is about health and vitality. So therefore, instead of paying to follow him or paying an ad of people to follow him, you could look into like Whole Foods or something like that. I think that's interesting way of looking at it, because that could be a much more competitive way of pricing this whole thing.
exactly. It's like a more competitive way of pricing it, but then it's also allowing you to get deeper into your audience, like not just demographic, but their psychographic, which is going to allow you to create better ads and write better copy and just overall create better messaging that's going to resonate with that person. The better you know who you're speaking to, the easier it is to target them and the easier it is to create ads to that person. So it helps on both sides.
Awesome. Well, cool. So then, tell me a little bit about where was I going with this? I forgot my question. Dang it. I was going to ask along the lines of, yeah, totally escaped me. Totally escaped me. So I think we'll jump into my second question, which was going to be a follow up to this. But I wanted to ask a little bit more about your services, and we've talked about a ton. And I wanted to first emphasize why I brought this subject up too, to talk about with our listeners. And it's because it seems like whenever you look at any type of small business, one way or another, it seems like Facebook is a hub for marketing, for advertising. It seems like that's one of the things you've got to master, whether it's e-commerce, it's come up, whether it's just pushing or promoting your podcast, whether it's pushing or promoting your personal brand, or being able to sell more high ticket events. It just seems like it all comes back through Facebook ads in some way or another. So I wanted to bring on an expert like yourself, Jayme, to just kind of talk through this. And you can see how complex it really gets when you get into the weeds and all this. And I know we've just barely scratched the surface on all this, but I wanted to understand what you will do for a lot of your customers and clients. So if someone's like, okay, I don't want to deal with all this, how do I just hire you and you can figure this out for me?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I'm actually in a kind of a funny position or unique position now where I'm actually transitioning out of really managing a lot of ads for businesses. I've done it for a really long time, and so I love doing it, but I have to limit how many businesses I can take on and support in that manner. So I'm actually, the best way I can support people right now is more from like a consulting education standpoint when it comes to ads. And I know it does. We talked about a lot of different things today, and it does seem probably like some big overwhelming topic, but something I pride myself on is simplifying ads as much as possible, and then making it just as easy as you can to implement them into your business in an evergreen way, so that they're not something you have to be thinking about and constantly changing up your strategy all the time. I'm always focusing on like, how can you find an ad strategy that works for your business for the long term, and that you can get set up once and then just make tweaks to it as needed. So the best way I can support people is I do one-on-one consulting, but I also offer a group coaching program, which is basically, it's like a course format program, but I also am working with you. So you're still getting that like real-time support, to where I walk you through over 8 weeks how to set up and manage your own Facebook ads for your business to generate more leads and create more sales for your business. So this is specifically for like coaches, consultants, and like online entrepreneurs, like I had mentioned, especially like you said, if you're selling courses or also group programs or even high ticket services. I truly believe that Facebook ads are something that it's just a skill that, yeah, I think if everyone had it, that people would just find growing and scaling their businesses so much easier, because it's a tool that allows you to get in front of those people right away and generate that return that you actually need for it to make sense for you to use it, continually in your business. So that program is called Ads That Amplify. I open it a few times a year because I do it live with the students in the program. And it's something that I've taken now about 20 students through the program and had great success with it. And I think that if you can do that, get ads working for you, maybe run them for a few months and get enough return to where if you decide it's not something you want to do long term, then I totally recommend hiring it out to somebody. But I just don't always recommend going that route to start because there's a lot of people out there who don't know what they're doing. I'm just going to say that. And they will spend your money and not generate any sort of results for you. And if at the end of the day, you don't have any idea why that didn't work for you, or why, that this company that you hired wasn't able to get your results, that doesn't do you very good as a business owner. Where at least if you have some basic understanding and knowledge of how ads work, it's a lot easier for you to go out and outsource somebody at a point where it makes sense to do that for you, because then you'll know exactly why your strategy is working or what's not, and what needs to be done in order to make it more successful moving forward.
Yeah, it does seem like one of those things that you really need to understand well enough to be able to delegate it before just outsourcing it entirely without knowing what's really going on. It's kind
Yeah,
of one of
yeah.
those interesting skills that, as we've discussed too. I mean, you've got to know a lot about your brand, and the best person to do that's typically the person that started it, or the person that's very heavily involved with building that and managing that performance. So,
I'm
uh,
so glad you said that, actually. And I think that's the main benefit of running your own ads at first versus hiring somebody out is, yeah, there's nobody that knows your customers like you do. There's nobody that knows your programs and what makes your offerings unique like you do. And so ultimately, I do think that most of the time you're the best actual salesperson for your business, especially if even you don't consider yourself to be a good salesperson, this stuff. And it just takes the right questions and everything to kind of pull that out of you. And like I said, I think if you can do that and then you can find success with ads and then hand that off to somebody, it's so much easier for them to just enhance that and amplify that and get you more results. But at first, I think if you can take 8 weeks, like the length of my program, and you can learn this skill for yourself and get it working for you, for life, essentially, this is a skill that you can use, for the length of your business, then there's so much power to that. And again, yeah, like you said, when it comes time to outsourcing it, it's like you'll just have a better understanding of what really to look for.
do you have any tips or anything on just managing the constant updates of Facebook and their algorithms, and then Instagram and their algorithms and stuff? Because it seems like, whatever it was, like 18 months ago, Instagram just decided they were just going to kind of hammer people that had followings of 10,000 people or more. And it's just, you don't get as much engagement anymore. And it's just, what's the best way to kind of stay on top of those trends, in your opinion?
Yeah. So I like within the actual Facebook Ads Manager, they actually have a section in the Ads Manager that I believe is like a question mark. So if for anyone listening, the next time you're in the Ads Manager, look for it. It's like in the top right corner, it's a question mark. And that's where Facebook actually puts out all of their releases and updates about things on their platform. But what I would say is, at the end of the day, you'll notice the trends and everything just in the ads that you're running. So things change a lot, but the core principles of what make Facebook ads work for your business, that doesn't change as often. So I would say, if you're running a campaign and it's been working for you a long time and then all of a sudden it stops, like that might be an opportunity for you to go and look at the algorithm and see what's changed and see why you need to maybe fix it because it stopped working. But for the most part, the little changes they make week to week or month to month aren't going to affect necessarily like what you're doing with your campaigns all the time. So it's just not something I would tell people to like stress about too much, because the core principles of what make ads work, like you were even saying, some of the principles I was telling you about go back to like what you learned in 8th grade. Like some of this stuff just doesn't change. Algorithms change, but what make ads work doesn't always necessarily change. So
Got it.
that's like,
Okay. So do you think there's anything that you think is important to know that we didn't really cover today? Because like I said, I just kind of dug into the spots that I think are my particular weaknesses, but you are the master of this. And I just want to make sure that our audience also has the opportunity to kind of hear from you of if you think there's something good to know that we didn't cover.
um, what do people need to know? just don't press the boost button. Set up your ads in the ads
Why is that?
manager. um, because it's not the most effective way to set up an ad. By default, when you press the boost button, Facebook, and they offer this both on Facebook and Instagram. But when you do that, most of the time they're optimizing for the engagement objective, which is you asking them for more likes, comments, and shares on your post. And unless that's what you're wanting, then let's say, if you're wanting leads or sales, that's not going to help you get the objective that you're looking for. So when you go and set up an ad in the ads manager, Facebook's going to give you like 13 different advertising objectives to choose from. And it just gives you more options to choose the one that's most appropriate for the result you're looking for. In addition, you get more targeting options through the ads manager than when you hit the boost or promote button. So you're not going to get as good of targeting options, and you're not going to get the data and analytics like you would when you set it up in the ads manager. So you just miss out on a bunch of features that, to me, really go into creating an effective campaign. So that's why I recommend not doing it that way. It might be easy, but it's unless you're wanting more likes, comments, and shares, probably just don't do it.
Got it. Yeah, that's good. Anything else that you can think of?
The only other thing I can think of is like, look for what works for you organically in your business and think about how you can amplify that with ads. I think so many times we're looking for like the ad strategy that's going to help like grow and scale our business to the next big number, whatever that is, 6, 7, 8 figures for you overnight. When it's not really about that. Ads are just a tool. And so it's really about amplifying things that are already working. So again, if you already have a freebie that you notice people opt into it from your website and they end up booking a call with you, like, great, start putting money behind that. Or if you notice that there's a post that you post organically on your Facebook or Instagram page and it's just getting a lot of engagement, a lot of shares, and maybe people are coming to your website off of it, then great, amplify that if it's already working. Just look for, I would say, like things that are already, like I said, working for you as is in your business, and then think about how you can maybe put more money behind that to just get more results. I think that's like the best place that you can start with ads. And then you can go into thinking about all the things we talked about on today's podcast in terms of like, coming up with a freebie and your audience targeting, all of that stuff. But I just think that it doesn't need to be, it can be something that's just as simple as like looking for what's already working and then putting a little bit more behind that in your business.
Oh, awesome. So you kind of mentioned that you're launching you run a program, the 8-week program, where people can, work with you one-on-one in a way, or in a group forum where they can learn how to do this stuff themselves. And as we kind of unpacked a lot of this today, and we just, like we said, we just scratched the surface. There's so much that can go into this. How can people learn more about the program? How can people get in touch with you directly? We'll start with that.
Yeah, definitely. So my program's called Ads That Amplify. And so if you go to adsthatamplify.com, you can hop on the wait list for that now. If you hop on the wait list, you'll be the first to know when I do open it again. And I'm actually giving away like a free mini training when you sign up. So that's something you'll get to kind of enjoy now until I open up the doors again, which will probably be towards the end of July or August 2020 for anyone listening. So, so kind of deciding things got a little bit, my marketing plan got a little bit switched up lately, but,
I understand.
Yeah, with everything happening, I just had to sort of reevaluate when I was, launching things, but yeah, so that's where you can learn more about the group program. I would love to have anyone that's interested in the program. Like I said, it's 8 weeks. I work with you one-on-one, and you get, a video, direct to you each week. And then on Mondays, and then on Thursdays, I do like a Q&A, like feedback type hour where you can ask your questions from that week, and then bring your different like assets, like your copy or your images and things like that for me to review. So it's a great program. That's where you can learn about that. And then otherwise, if people want to contact me, I just would love for you to connect with me on Instagram. You can find me there at the Ad Expert. So it's a lot easier to spell that than my name. So I just went with that as my handle. So yeah, you can find me there at the Ad Expert. I'd love to connect. And if you end up following me, shoot me a message and say hi so that I know how you found me.
Well, that's absolutely wonderful. And I really appreciate you sharing a lot of this just tactical stuff with us. A lot of times it's a lot of guests like to hold out the good stuff, and you really have no issue sharing, and it just kind of shows your character and how open you really are and how much you really do understand about this subject. I think that's really awesome. And that's helpful for us today. Finally, my last question for you, Jayme, is just, we have a lot of entrepreneurs, we've got a lot of veterans, fitness experts, high achievers, ambitious people. What just general advice would you give them as they look to build their business? It can be related to Facebook ads, or it can be just related to life in general. What are your thoughts and any kind of tips you would provide to them?
Hmm. I think definitely one of my biggest tips would be just to figure out, like, to instead of focusing on like the all the shiny objects that come up in your business, or focusing on the things that seem like they make you money, really get clear on the things that bring in the income and focus only your time on that. I think I spent so long, especially being someone who, like I said, used to be like a Jill of all trades marketer, wanting to try every tactic and every like fun thing out there to see if it would work, and all that did was distract me. Where if you can just get one thing working for you, like one webinar or one, video free training that you can get leads in, and then converts those leads into calls that then you can become clients of yours. If you can just get one system like that down, it'll free up so much more of your time and make it so that, you can work less and accomplish more, right? And I think that's what we all really want at the end of the day, is to be able to maximize on our time. So that's like one big tip, because I know I got really lost with that for a long time in my business. Like, oh, I need to be on all the platforms, and I need to be doing like this technique, like email marketing and ads and content marketing and like all the things, right? Like, you don't need all of that. You just need one that works really well for your business, and preferably one that you can amplify with ads.
Well, this was absolutely a very enjoyable experience for me, and it was a very dense, note heavy episode. So, Jayme, Tarshis, thank you so much for coming on our show today. We really appreciate you taking the time out of your busy day. I know you're always. We went back and forth a couple times trying to get a time together with for both of us here, and this is just absolutely awesome, dense with content, tons of information. Guys, make sure you reach out to Jayme if you want to participate in any of her programs, or if you just want to follow along. She has some awesome gimmies and freebies too. She posts on her Facebook and Instagram page as well. So that was a wonderful episode. I thank you so much for coming on the show.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It was such a pleasure.
Awesome. Well, guys, this is Winners, Wallets, and Worldviews podcast. You can go to aaronjarmstrong.com/podcast to listen to this episode. And once again, you can follow me at aaronjarmstrong.com and Aaron Armstrong 33 on Instagram. So thank you so much, everybody. Be somebody.